The wind howled like a wounded animal as Jamie pressed his forehead against the frosted window, watching the blizzard transform the mountain retreat into a prison of white. Behind him, his boss, the intimidating, impossibly demanding Marcus Winters, paced the small cabin, phone in hand, desperately trying to reach his daughter. Jamie never imagined he'd be trapped here, in this intimate space, with the man who made his workdays a living nightmare. And he certainly never imagined they'd be forced to share the cabin's only bed tonight. If you've ever felt your heart race at an unexpected connection with someone you thought you knew, stay with me until the end of this story. It might just change how you see the people in your own life. If this resonates with you so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more stories that explore the unexpected moments that transform us. Jamie Chen had been working at Winters Architecture for exactly 11 months and 14 days. Not that he was counting. Except he absolutely was, because in precisely 16 days, he would have survived a full year under the infamous Marcus Winters, the most exacting, critical, and coldly efficient boss in the industry. Jamie had watched 6 other junior architects quit in tears during his time there. But he refused to be number 7. The annual company retreat was supposed to be a chance to impress Marcus with his dedication, to finally earn something beyond the curt nods and red pen corrections that defined their professional relationship. The mountain lodge in Colorado had separate cabins for each team, and Jamie had prepared meticulously for the 3 days of team-building exercises and project planning. What he hadn't prepared for was the worst blizzard to hit the region in decades. "Still no signal," Marcus muttered, setting his phone down with uncharacteristic force. The main lodge confirmed everyone else evacuated safely before the roads closed. "We're the only ones left on this side of the mountain." Jamie nodded, trying to hide his anxiety. "At least we have power, food, and heat. The storm should pass by tomorrow afternoon." Marcus ran a hand through his dark hair, streaked with premature silver at the temples. For the first time since Jamie had known him, the man looked genuinely worried. "My daughter, Lily, she's with my sister. I need to let them know I'm safe." Jamie had heard rumors about Marcus being a single father, but the man never discussed his personal life at work. The concern etched across his usually stoic face made him suddenly seem human. "The landline might still work," Jamie suggested, pointing to the old-fashioned phone on the wall. Marcus's eyes widened slightly, as if surprised by Jamie's practical thinking. "Good idea." The call went through, and Jamie tried not to eavesdrop as Marcus spoke softly to his daughter. The tenderness in his voice was so at odds with the sharp, critical tone Jamie was accustomed to that it felt like he was witnessing something forbidden. "Good night, Lily Bear. Daddy loves you too. Be good for Aunt Sarah." Marcus hung up, and for a moment, vulnerability lingered on his face before the professional mask slipped back into place. The lodge manager called. "They've shut down the main generators to prevent a fire. We'll lose power soon, but they've stocked emergency supplies in each cabin." As if on cue, the lights flickered and died, plunging them into the blue-gray darkness of early evening. The only sound was the relentless howling of the wind and the occasional creak of the cabin's wooden frame straining against the storm. "I'll check the emergency kit," Jamie said, using his phone's flashlight to navigate to the closet. Inside, he found thick blankets, candles, matches, a battery-powered lantern, and a first aid kit. The cabin's main room had a small fireplace, and thankfully, a stack of firewood beside it. Jamie set about building a fire, aware of Marcus watching him with an unreadable expression. "You've done that before," Marcus observed as Jamie efficiently arranged the kindling. Jamie nodded, focusing on his task. "My grandparents had a cabin in Vermont. No electricity, just a wood stove. I spent every summer there until college." The fire caught, casting a warm glow across the room. In its light, the cabin seemed smaller, more intimate. A kitchenette, a small dining table, a sofa, and a door that Jamie knew led to the bedroom with its single queen-sized bed. "We should conserve heat," Marcus said pragmatically. "The temperature's dropping fast." They ate a simple dinner of the sandwiches and fruit they'd packed for lunch, sitting awkwardly at the small table. Jamie had never spent time alone with Marcus outside of work meetings. The silence between them felt heavy with unasked questions. "Why architecture?" Marcus asked suddenly, startling Jamie mid-bite. "What? You're talented. Your concepts are innovative, if sometimes impractical. But you work like someone with something to prove." "Why?" Jamie set down his sandwich, surprised by the personal question. "My father was a contractor. He built other people's visions his whole life. I wanted to create the visions." Marcus nodded slowly. "And you chose my firm specifically." It wasn't a question, but Jamie answered anyway. "You're the best. Your standards are impossible, but your work is flawless." A ghost of a smile touched Marcus's lips. "Not impossible. Just exacting." As the evening wore on, the temperature continued to drop. They moved to the sofa near the fire, wrapped in blankets, the awkwardness between them gradually thawing as they discussed projects, architecture, and eventually, hesitantly, their lives outside work. Jamie learned that Marcus had been raising his 8-year-old daughter alone since his wife died of cancer 4 years ago. The revelation explained so much about his boss's rigid schedule, his intolerance for tardiness, his need for control. "It's just the two of us," Marcus said quietly, staring into the flames. "Everything I do, every decision I make, affects her future." "Is that why you're so hard on everyone at work?" Jamie asked, emboldened by the unusual intimacy of their situation. Marcus looked at him sharply, then his expression softened. "Partly. But also because excellence matters. What we build outlasts us. It becomes part of people's lives, their memories, their sense of place in the world." Jamie nodded, understanding for the first time that Marcus's demanding nature came from passion, not cruelty. As midnight approached, the fire began to die down, and the cold crept in despite their blankets. Their breath fogged in the air. "We need to address the sleeping arrangements," Marcus said, his professional tone returning. "There's only one bed. I'll take the sofa." Jamie glanced at the narrow, sagging couch and then at Marcus's tall frame. "That's not practical. You won't fit. And it's freezing out here away from the bedroom's heating vent." "I'm not taking the bed while my employee sleeps on the couch, Chen." Jamie sighed. "Then we share. It's the logical solution. The bed's big enough, and we're both adults." Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but another violent gust of wind rattled the windows, sending a draft of icy air through the cabin. "Fine. Logical solution accepted." The bedroom was marginally warmer than the main room, but the bed, with its thick quilt and flannel sheets, promised the only real comfort in the freezing cabin. They awkwardly arranged themselves on opposite sides, a careful gap between them, both still wearing their clothes minus shoes and outer layers. "Good night, Mr. Winters," Jamie said formally, trying to maintain some semblance of their normal professional relationship. "Under the circumstances, I think you can call me Marcus," came the quiet reply from the darkness. Jamie smiled to himself. "Good night, Marcus." "Good night, Jamie." Sleep came surprisingly easily, the exhaustion of the day and the warmth of the bed overcoming the strangeness of their situation. Jamie drifted off to the sound of the storm and Marcus's steady breathing beside him. He woke hours later, disoriented in the darkness. The first thing he registered was warmth, unexpected, complete warmth. The second was that he was no longer on his side of the bed. Somehow, during the night, they had gravitated toward each other. Jamie's head rested against Marcus's chest, and Marcus's arm was wrapped around him, holding him close. Jamie froze, panic rising in his throat. He should move away immediately. This was his boss, his impossibly strict, professional boss. But before he could extract himself, Marcus stirred. "Jamie?" His voice was rough with sleep, confused. "Sorry," Jamie whispered, mortified. I must have moved in my sleep. But Marcus didn't pull away. Instead, his arm tightened slightly. It's freezing. This is warmer. The practical explanation should have made things less awkward, but instead, it highlighted the intimacy of their position. Jamie remained perfectly still, acutely aware of Marcus's heartbeat under his ear, the rise and fall of his chest, the warmth of his body seeping through their clothes. Jamie began. Stay, Marcus said quietly. Just, stay. Something in his voice made Jamie look up, though he could barely make out Marcus's features in the darkness. Marcus? I'm not good at this, Marcus said, his voice barely audible over the storm. Connecting with people. Not since Claire died. It's easier to keep everyone at a distance. Even at the cost of being known as the office tyrant? Jamie asked, surprising himself with his boldness. Marcus's chest moved with a silent laugh. Is that what they call me? Among other things. And what do you call me? Jamie hesitated. Brilliant. Demanding. Worth the effort. The silence that followed was charged with something Jamie couldn't name. Then Marcus's hand moved, hesitantly, to touch Jamie's hair. You're the only one who's never complained. Never asked for an extension or made excuses. You just rise to every challenge. I wanted to prove I belonged there, Jamie admitted. That I deserved a place at your firm. You've more than proven that, Marcus said softly. Your work on the Riverside project was exceptional. I was going to tell you at the retreat evaluation. Jamie's heart raced at the unexpected praise. Really? I don't say things I don't mean, Jamie. The use of his first name, spoken with that unexpected warmth, sent a shiver through Jamie that had nothing to do with the cold. He became acutely aware of how close they were, how intimate this moment felt. Marcus, I. The rest of his words were lost as Marcus's lips found his in the darkness. The kiss was tentative at first, a question more than a demand. Jamie answered by leaning into it, his hand coming up to rest against Marcus's jaw, feeling the slight roughness of stubble under his fingertips. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. Jamie could feel his heart pounding, his mind racing with questions and implications. I shouldn't have done that, Marcus said, but he made no move to pull away. Why did you? Jamie asked. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Because for the first time in 4 years, I wanted something for myself, not just for Lily or for the firm. Something that wasn't about obligation or responsibility. And that something was, me? Jamie couldn't keep the wonder from his voice. You've intrigued me from the day you started. Your determination, your talent, the way you never back down from a challenge. But I'm your boss. There are boundaries. Jamie thought about the past 11 months of working under Marcus's exacting standards, the criticism that had pushed him to be better, the rare moments of approval that had meant more than they should have. What if I don't want those boundaries? He asked quietly. Marcus's hand found his in the darkness, fingers intertwining. Then we have a lot to figure out when this storm passes. They talked through the night, their conversation punctuated by tentative touches and soft kisses. Jamie learned about Marcus's fears of failing as a father, his struggle to balance work and raising Lily, his reluctance to let anyone close after losing his wife. Marcus listened as Jamie spoke of his immigrant parents' sacrifices to give him opportunities, his determination to make them proud, his loneliness in a city where he knew no one outside work. By the time dawn broke, casting a pearl-gray light through the frosted windows, they had mapped the contours of each other's lives, finding unexpected parallels and complementary differences. The storm had abated, leaving a pristine blanket of snow and a crystalline silence. They'll clear the road soon, Marcus said, his fingers tracing patterns on Jamie's arm. We'll go back to the real world. Jamie propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at Marcus. In the morning light, he could see the vulnerability in those eyes that at work seemed so coldly analytical. And what happens then? Marcus reached up to touch Jamie's face, his expression serious. That depends. This could complicate things professionally. I know. Lily has to be my priority. Dating me means dating a package deal. Jamie smiled. I've always liked kids. And I'm not easy to be with. I'm demanding and particular, Anne. Believe it or not, I've noticed those qualities, Jamie interrupted with a laugh. Marcus's expression softened. What I'm trying to say is that this won't be simple. But if you're willing to try, so am I. Jamie leaned down to kiss him, a promise in the gesture. I've never backed down from a challenge, especially one worth taking. The sound of snowplows in the distance signaled the end of their isolation. Soon they would return to the world of professional boundaries and workplace hierarchies. But as they packed up the cabin, stealing glances and brushing hands, Jamie knew that everything had changed. 3 months later, Jamie stood nervously on the porch of Marcus's home, a modest but elegant house in a quiet suburb. It was his first time meeting Lily outside of the brief introduction at the office. He adjusted the wrapped package in his hands, a model building kit he'd spent hours researching, hoping it would appeal to an 8-year-old with her father's analytical mind. The door opened, and Marcus stood there, looking different in jeans and a casual sweater, a smile warming his features in a way that still surprised Jamie. She's excited to meet you, Marcus said quietly, pulling Jamie in for a quick kiss. Hasn't stopped talking about it all day. What if she doesn't like me? Jamie whispered, the fear he'd been harboring finally spoken aloud. Marcus squeezed his hand. She will. Just be yourself. A small voice called from inside, Dad? Is he here? And then she appeared, a miniature version of Marcus with the same serious eyes but a more ready smile. She regarded Jamie with open curiosity. You're the one who makes my dad smile at his phone, she said matter-of-factly. Jamie felt his face heat up as Marcus coughed beside him. Guess I am. Lily nodded, as if confirming something to herself. Good. He didn't do that enough before. Do you like Monopoly? Dad always lets me be the banker even though I sometimes cheat. Lily. Marcus protested, but his eyes were crinkled with amusement. Jamie laughed, feeling the tension drain from his shoulders. I love Monopoly. And I always catch cheaters. Lily grinned, a challenge in her expression that was so like her father's. We'll see about that. As they moved into the warm house, Jamie caught Marcus watching them, something soft and hopeful in his expression. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, they were still navigating the complexities of their professional relationship, and building a place in Lily's life would take time and patience. But as Lily excitedly unwrapped the model kit, exclaiming over the detailed pieces, and Marcus's hand found his, Jamie knew that some challenges were worth every difficult step. The snowstorm had trapped them together for just one night, but it had opened a door to a future neither of them had imagined possible. Sometimes, Jamie thought, the most unexpected connections happen when we're forced to see beyond the roles we play in each other's lives, when a strict boss becomes just a man, vulnerable and human, and an employee becomes someone who sees that humanity and cherishes it. If you've ever had your life changed by an unexpected connection, if you've ever discovered that someone was so much more than the role they played in your life, then you understand the power of truly seeing people as they are. Like this video if this story touched your heart, and subscribe for more stories about the moments that transform us. Remember, sometimes the biggest changes begin in the smallest spaces, even a cabin in a snowstorm, with just one bed to share.